The twin suns of the carry-on system were dying, bleeding faint orange light across the jagged cliffs of the abandoned mining colony. Dust storms blew constantly through the hollow streets, eroding the remnants of buildings that had once hummed with life. Lyra and Naya stumbled along the cracked pathways, their stomachs twisting in agony from hunger. Days had passed since they had eaten, and each step was heavier than the last. Lyra, the older of the two, tightened the worn strap of her pack over her shoulder, feeling the thin layers of her clothing offering little protection against the harsh winds. She glanced at Naya, who leaned against a rusted wall, shivering despite the heat. Her younger sister's eyes were wide, pleading and haunted by exhaustion. I can't do this much longer," Naya whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind. "You will," Lyra replied firmly, though her own voice trembled. "We survive. I won't let you starve, Naya, I promise." But Lyra felt the weight of despair pressing against her chest. The colony had collapsed months ago after the central power core malfunctioned, cutting off access to stored food and water. The few survivors had either fled or died. They had scavenged what they could, but the supplies were gone. Hunger had turned their bodies into fragile shells, and the unforgiving desert of rock and dust offered nothing. As they crested a ridge, Lyra's eyes caught a glint of metal in the distance. Her heart quickened. It was a human settlement, at least she hoped it was human. Humans were rare in these sectors, and rumors spoke of their strange technology, their ingenuity, and their resources. Lyra had heard stories of humans who could survive anywhere, and had the power to change the course of a dying colony with their tools and knowledge. "Do you think they'll help us?" Naya asked, her voice small and uncertain. "They have to," Lyra replied, though she was not sure if she believed her own words. She knew the humans were known for their fairness, but desperation twisted her judgment. Hunger clawed at her reason. She knew what she was willing to do to save her sister. The human settlement was not large, just a cluster of metallic domes and towers built around a central supply depot. Smoke rose from chimneys and faint lights shone through reinforced windows. Lyra approached cautiously, her nerves screaming that every step could be her last. As they neared the gates, a figure emerged. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and wore a simple uniform that seemed both practical and worn. His eyes were sharp but kind, scanning them with an unreadable expression. This was the human they had heard about, Captain Ryan. Lyra swallowed hard. She had come prepared to do the unthinkable. She stepped forward, her voice shaking. "Please, we need help. Food, water, anything. My sister." Her words faltered as shame and fear filled her chest. Ryan's gaze softened, but he did not speak immediately. He seemed to measure them, noting the hollow cheeks, sunken eyes, and trembling hands. Then calmly he said, "You've traveled far. I can see you're starving. Tell me what you need and I'll help. But I won't take advantage of your suffering." Lyra froze. His words were not what she expected. She had imagined threats, cold calculation, or harsh bargaining. She had expected to give herself to save Naya. Instead, he offered aid freely. I can't pay," she admitted. "I have nothing." "You don't need to," Ryan said, gesturing toward the domes. "Come inside. We'll start with food and water, then we'll figure out how to keep you both alive." Inside the dome, the air was warm and clean. The smell of roasted protein and fresh vegetables made Lyra's stomach tighten painfully. Ryan handed them both small trays filled with a thick, nourishing paste and clear water. Naya's hands shook as she took the food, and for a moment Lyra worried that her sister's frailty might prevent her from eating at all. But Naya ate. Slowly at first, then more steadily until her face lost some of its hollow, haunted look. Lyra allowed herself a sigh of relief, her own hunger gnawing but still distant compared to the overwhelming emotion of seeing her sister survive. Why are you helping us?" Lyra asked, her voice trembling with a mixture of gratitude and confusion. Ryan smiled faintly. "Because you're trying to survive. You're not asking for charity out of laziness, you're fighting to protect someone else. That's worth protecting." Lyra's throat tightened. She had expected barter, threats, or demands. She had expected to lose her dignity, but instead she found understanding. She realized that humans were not just survivors, they were protectors. They could see the worth in others' courage, even in the smallest acts. Over the next few days, Lyra and Naya stayed in the dome, regaining their strength. Ryan taught them to purify water using small filters, to cultivate tiny hydroponic gardens, and to scavenge safely for salvageable supplies. The sisters had never seen technology like this. machines that could grow food in hours, devices that made harsh environments manageable. Their hope began to grow alongside their strength. One evening, while the twins rested after a long day of work, Lyra spoke quietly to Ryan. I thought I had no choice. I thought I had to do something terrible to survive. Ryan shook his head. Desperation makes people think they have no options. But courage is not just about surviving, it's about protecting those you care for, even when the world is against you. You chose to survive with your sister, not against her. That makes all the difference. Naya, lying beside her, smiled weakly. I think I understand now. We're not just lucky. We have someone to guide us. And maybe we can do this on our own too. Days turned into a week. Lyra and Naya grew stronger, their movements more confident, their eyes brighter. Ryan continued to help, teaching them how to repair old colony equipment, extract clean water from rock, and even rig small defense systems against scavengers and predators that roamed the abandoned asteroid belts. One morning, while surveying the nearby cliffs, Lyra saw signs of another settlement approaching. This one was hostile, made up of scavengers who wanted to claim whatever the human had. She panicked for a moment, remembering the desperation that had driven her to make impossible choices. But Ryan was already assessing the threat calm and confident. Stay close, he said. We can handle this, but you must trust yourself as much as you trust me. For the first time in weeks, Lyra did not feel fear dominate her thoughts. She felt determination. With Naya by her side and Ryan guiding them, she understood that survival was more than hunger. It was courage, ingenuity, and teamwork. And humans, she realized, were extraordinary in ways that transcended strength or numbers. Their ability to protect, adapt, and inspire made them a force that even the most desperate alien colonies could rely on. As the hostile settlement drew nearer, Lyra took a deep breath. She remembered the fear that had brought her here, the shame she had felt in thinking she must barter her dignity for survival. Now she saw another path, one where courage and intelligence could save lives without sacrificing who they were. The first confrontation with the scavengers would test that lesson, but Lyra felt ready. She glanced at Naya, who nodded, her eyes fierce despite her weakness. And then, with Ryan leading, they faced the incoming threat together, not as helpless victims, but as a team. In the harsh, unfeeling expanse of the carry-on system, a new kind of hope had taken root. It was fragile, yes, but it was alive. And for the first time, Lyra believed that survival did not have to come at the cost of one's soul. The sun rose slowly over the jagged cliffs of the abandoned colony, casting long shadows across the metallic structures that now housed Lyra, Naya, and Ryan. The dust storms had quieted, leaving only the soft hum of machinery and the occasional whisper of wind through the empty streets. The sisters had grown stronger over the past week, their movements steadier, their faces brighter. The hunger that had consumed them was finally replaced by hope, and that hope carried a strange kind of strength. Ryan had spent hours teaching them how to use the colony's old equipment. He showed them how to operate the water purifiers, how to grow small hydroponic gardens, and even how to harness solar energy to power the domes. Lyra watched and learned, absorbing every instruction with determination. Naya, too, had found her confidence, her small hands skillfully adjusting valves and assembling simple circuits. They were no longer helpless. They were becoming survivors in their own right. One afternoon, while checking the perimeter, Lyra noticed movement on the cliffs beyond the colony. A group of scavengers had arrived, larger than she expected, their makeshift weapons gleaming in the sunlight. She felt a flicker of fear, but she had learned quickly that fear alone would not save her or Naya. She turned to Ryan, who was already scanning the area, his eyes sharp and calculating. "They won't wait for us to be ready," Lyra said. "We don't have to fight them head-on," Ryan replied calmly. "We'll use strategy. Stay close, follow my lead, and remember everything I taught you." The sisters nodded, hearts pounding but minds focused. Ryan had taught them to think like humans, not just reacting with brute force, but using intelligence, observation, and cunning to survive. Lyra felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. She had come to fear confrontation, but now she saw it as a test of all they had learned. When the scavengers reached the outer edge of the colony, Ryan led the sisters along hidden pathways and elevated walkways. They avoided the open ground, using the colony's abandoned towers for cover. Small traps Ryan had set days before, a combination of weighted nets and alert sensors, activated silently, slowing the enemy and forcing them into narrow corridors where numbers mattered less. Lyra held her breath as Naya tripped one of the traps, a net falling over a group of scavengers. The sound of struggling and shouting echoed through the cliffs. The sisters' fear began to mix with exhilaration. They were no longer helpless. They were part of the fight, using intelligence and courage to protect their home and each other. Ryan moved with precision, his every action deliberate and effective. Lyra followed, mimicking his movements, learning how to anticipate danger and respond quickly. Naya, smaller and quicker, darted between positions, disarming traps and signaling to Ryan. Together, they turned the scavenger attack into a demonstration of strategy over strength. By the end of the encounter, the scavengers were driven away, their numbers reduced and their morale shattered. The sisters stood panting, covered in dust and sweat, but alive. Lyra looked at Ryan, admiration and gratitude written on her face. I didn't think we could do it, she admitted. You did, Ryan said simply. You fought, you learned, and you adapted. That's what humans do. We survive and we help those who fight to survive alongside us. The victory was more than physical. It was a lesson. Lyra realized that courage and ingenuity could overcome even overwhelming odds. The sisters had been close to despair, ready to sacrifice everything to survive. Now, they understood that survival did not require surrender. It required intelligence, bravery, and a willingness to act. Over the following weeks, the sisters continued to strengthen their home. Ryan guided them in expanding the hydroponic gardens, building stronger shelters, and fortifying the perimeter. Lyra discovered a natural talent for leadership, directing Naya in coordinating resources and tasks. Naya, in turn, developed inventive solutions for mechanical problems, surprising even Ryan with her ingenuity. Their bond with Ryan deepened. They shared stories of their past, their hopes and their fears. Ryan, in his quiet, patient way, explained human philosophy, how humans valued not only survival but compassion, creativity, and the protection of others. Lyra began to understand that humans were remarkable, not because of their physical strength, but because of their resilience and their ability to inspire courage in others. One evening, as the twin suns set, painting the sky in shades of red and gold, Lyra and Naya sat with Ryan on a high balcony overlooking the colony. The air was still, and the only sounds were the hum of machines and the occasional wind through the cliffs. Do you think humans are really that special? Naya asked softly. They are, Ryan replied. Not because they're perfect, but because they don't give up. They adapt, they learn, and they protect those who matter. Even when the world seems hopeless, humans find a way. Lyra nodded, absorbing the truth in his words. She remembered the moment she had been ready to give everything to survive, the desperation that had driven her to the edge. Now she saw another way, one where hope, courage, and intelligence could triumph over despair. Days later, another threat arrived. Not scavengers this time, but a natural disaster. A sudden meteor storm approached the colony, threatening to destroy everything they had built. Panic threatened to take hold, but Ryan remained calm, instructing the sisters on emergency protocols. They secured the domes, reinforced the walls, and activated automated defense shields. Lyra directed Naya in evacuating non-essential areas, ensuring that every resource was protected. The meteors rained down, shaking the colony, but their preparations held. They watched as debris struck shields and fell harmlessly to the ground. After the storm passed, the sisters realized they had grown stronger not only in skill, but in spirit. They were capable of surviving the universe's harshness, guided by intelligence and courage rather than fear. They had learned to act with precision, adapt quickly, and trust in each other's abilities. Ryan, ever calm, surveyed the damage and nodded. You've done well. You've learned what it means to survive and, more importantly, what it means to protect those you care about. That's human strength, and now it's yours too. The sisters smiled, understanding that their journey was far from over. There would be more threats, more challenges, and more choices to make. But they were no longer helpless. With the lessons of human courage, intelligence, and compassion, they could face whatever came next. Weeks turned into months, and the sisters thrived. The colony became a small beacon of life in a desolate system, a testament to resilience and hope. Lyra and Naya worked tirelessly, building, repairing, and expanding their home. The memory of desperation and hunger remained, but it was now a reminder of how far they had come. One day, as Ryan prepared to leave for another sector, Lyra approached him. "You've changed our lives," she said quietly. "We can never repay you for what you've done." "You don't need to repay me," Ryan said, smiling. "The universe is full of people who need help, and humans are meant to help those who fight to survive. I've only done what anyone would do." Naya hugged him tightly, her eyes shining with gratitude. "We'll never forget you," she whispered. As Ryan departed, the sisters watched him disappear into the distance, his ship glinting in the twin sun's light. They felt a mixture of sadness and hope. Sadness because their friend was gone, but hope because they now understood the true meaning of survival. Lyra turned to Naya, a smile forming on her lips. "We did it," she said. "We survived and we did it together." Naya nodded, her own smile growing. "And we'll keep surviving. We have each other, and we have what he taught us. Humans may be rare, but what they teach us, that can last forever." The sisters returned to their work, repairing, building, and expanding their colony. Every challenge they faced became an opportunity to grow, to learn and to prove that even in the harshest corners of space, courage and intelligence could overcome despair. In the distance, the twin suns set once more, casting long shadows over the cliffs. Lyra and Naya stood together, stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. They had been saved by a human's compassion and intelligence. But they had become more than survivors. They had become protectors, innovators, and a living testament to the strength that could be inspired by humanity. In the silent expanse of the carry-on system, hope had taken root. And for Lyra and Naya, it would never be extinguished again.